All right, we're official. Without further ado, I probably should give you the right screen. And Katie and Andrew, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Well, I will kick off and and pass it to Katie. Thank you, Sarah. And it's great to see all of you and many faces who I know well, and then some new ones who I have who I'm hoping to come to know. This organization, as you know, is unique in that this, when we do these assemblies, we're essentially gathering everyday Americans to hopefully one day control our destiny here. And I think that we've done extraordinary work as an organization over the last, well, I guess it's now, even though it's our fifth, so over 4 years, during this time, with what's been going on in our country, with the pandemic, the challenges that people have had personally, we have persevered, and I think it's been a testament to all of you. Many of you have continued to show up. We have different folks who I think Katie would agree are kind of some of the all-stars who have gone above and beyond. We have the voting rights committee that has been extraordinary, and I think that all along, while we've been surviving, I would say, we've been exercising our muscles. We've continued to keep our eyes on the prize, and the prize really is about giving true voice to the people and true power to the people. It sounds very populist, and it is, because we are at a time now, and I think all of you understand that as our divisions grow stronger, and as we, unfortunately, the folks in Washington get deeper into the death match that they're in, it is going to become absolutely necessary for everyday Americans to be eventually the arbiters. We are the ones who are going to have to come up with the common sense solutions, not on different, election rules, but eventually all the things that we are stuck on. So we're still very early in the process of creating that kind of credibility, and this has to be a truly credible. Sorry about this. No idea where this is coming from. It's the decline button. Fine. Sorry about that. That was my son calling. That's so annoying.
Glad to know we're your priority, Andrew. Thank you.
Exactly. But the key here is that we have to be building something that is credible. Nobody's going to care. It's like, oh, you got this nice little organization, but the way we started was truly credible and incredible. Our launch in DC, and what we've done over the last 4 years is also incredibly credible, because we have become an organization that is known throughout the political reform space. We are now also known throughout the deliberations space, and we're also known in what's called the bridging space, where people are getting together across differences. And if you remember back to our DC assembly, for those who weren't there, we did bring together all of those elements. We were coming together as citizens from across the divide, saying, one sec. Wyatt, I'm on a call. Got to come home. Stop calling me. Thanks. Bye. All right. Taking care of that. So in our process in DC, we set up a process where we would come together, break bread, and then in the middle portion, deliberate and decide what we were going to do together. That, to me, is the model that has to take hold and become a new part of our democracy if we are going to find our way out of all the things that we are stuck on. The good news is, in the last 6 months, I would say there's been a major turn towards this idea of citizen assemblies. Citizen assemblies, if they're done right and give true credibility to regular citizens, they're doing them overseas now regularly, where the politicians are asking for citizen assemblies. So we are now in the process of designing, and Katie will talk about what we're doing in New Hampshire, but designing a model for citizen assemblies that could work at every level of government. And you need them to be truly nonpartisan, and you need them to be representative of all the people. So that the simple idea is gather the people, create the will of the people, and then exercise the voice of the people. And that then the kind of changes that the people are advocating for actually happen. But until you do that in a credible way, there's no way to hold anybody accountable. There's no way to actually say, you guys aren't listening to us. Until you articulate what we actually want as a citizenry, you can't demand action. And right now, everything's all over the place. Well, this group wants this group wants that, this party wants that, this leader wants that. We need to articulate what the American people want as a whole. So that is the process that we're going to be undertaking. The funders that we've been, pushing are finally actually starting to take notice. And just in the last 3 months, we've gotten some significant funding, not just from one person. A lot of times in these organizations, they get one big person who's going to give a lot of money. This is from about 12 different people. And that is credibility, and it's so crucial for an organization to have funding, so you can start to build the staff and start to build the organizational structure to be able to do bigger things. So I just want to say that we are on the cusp of really breaking through on this kind of new programmatic power. I would say it harkens back to the assembly structure that we had in DC, and it's very exciting. So I hope all of you feel the pride of kind of pushing through, continue to exercise our muscles, staying true to our mission. We have a great brand, we have a great team, we have a great fearless leader in Katie. So I'll pass it off to Katie at this point.
Yay, thanks Andrew so much, and tell Wyatt thanks for his patience.
Yeah.
And Sarah, you can throw the slides up whenever you want to, but just echo what Andrew's saying. I'm very excited for what we have been working on and what all of you guys have been helping build. We've got a lot of muscles we've been exercising, and it's been very cool to see some growth. So for today, as Sarah kind of explained, we're going to kind of give an update on some of those projects, but we really want to do a deep dive too into what is our election strategy going to look like in the next year, and how do we keep growing our deliberations program. So I wanted to remind you guys of what our goals were for 2023 and give a brief progress update. We had 5 big goals that were kind of like, out of everything that we're doing, what seems to be the things that we should have the most focus on. So one of those is, as an organization, we got started and then COVID hit. Being a startup organization that wasn't promising to try and elect one candidate or another going into 2020 was tough. And so one of the things we've been really trying to work on is how do we make sure that we can get secured funding, get funders who will be repeat funders year over year, so that hopefully that can provide more stability, because our stability has kind of been like this. And so we're still working on that, but that's definitely been a focus. We had finally gotten substantial or decent funding for our New Hampshire project, which is that model Andrew was talking about, taking our National Assembly, applying it locally, also taking the lessons we learned in Michigan about how do we listen to people, bring them together, have them decide what needs to be enacted, and then actually enact it and change it. So that is a big focus of ours, because we were able to secure a big grant from New Pluralists. Operation Vote America, which stemmed out of the Voting Rights Committee last year, and that we were able to get funded to do high level of engagement around the 2022 election in Arizona and Michigan. We want to grow that program, because not only was our pilot successful, but we saw a lot of momentum and a lot of hunger that this works, but people really want to be engaged with it. We really wanted to lock down our model. How do we put that on paper, so it's not just something we talk about, but it's something that's actuated, which is number 4 on there. And then number 5 for our deliberations program, we had the Electoral College last year. We focused on high schools and colleges, but how do we actually expand that content so that we can be talking about a lot more items? Those are kind of like our top 5 goals. And if you go on to go to the next slide, Sarah, Then we have like about 15, maybe it's more, other goals that we've got here that we've been plugging away at. So I won't go over and read all of them. The green check marks feel like we're pretty close, and we feel really solid that that goal is either already met or about to be met. Stars means we're making good progress and we feel like we're on track to get that done. And where there isn't anything, which is the playbook and our marketing strategy and a little bit of the partnerships, we're still trying to meet those goals, but we feel a little behind. So just wanted to be transparent about that. You'll hear about a lot of these tonight, especially around New Hampshire deliberations and Operation Vote America. But a couple that I just want to continue or just want to highlight for you guys. Our intern program, Sarah keeps championing, and we've had some phenomenal interns this year. I wish we could hire them all. It is so exciting to see folks get excited about this process. I'm also hoping we can recruit some of them for the House of Delegates because we just had some phenomenal folks. Our voting rights committee has been focused on ballot initiatives, which has opened up potentially some new opportunities with helping folks in Ohio, South Dakota, North Dakota, Oregon, for folks who are trying to also look at the ballot initiative process, possibly New Hampshire too. We also have been able to, trying to think of what else I want to highlight. Oh, operationally, so we brought Ryan on a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, and he's head of our kind of political strategy, but also our operations. And this stuff might sound boring, but stuff like understanding like what does our filing structure look like, and like what's our naming convention of our documents, and how do we make sure that because we have employees in a bunch of different states and we have volunteers in a bunch of states, how do we make sure we're in compliance in all of those states and all that good stuff. So we've really been able to kind of look inwardly and I think mature as a relationship in that, mature as a organization in that way, which has been super exciting. I think that's good for the slides, Sarah. So or I'll pass it over in a second so you can keep it up. Sorry. So feeling pretty good about that. If you guys have questions on any of these, please throw them in the chat. And after we do a deep dive on 3 of the topics, which will be right after I'm done talking, we can also just take questions on that too. But feeling pretty good about the progress we've made. It's been a lot of focus, a lot of internal organizing, but I just have to say that Sarah, Ryan, and Jasmine are really a great team. They have taken their own projects, their own leadership, their own development, and making sure that we can be moving forward on this stuff, and have taken it really seriously and brought, I think, a lot of growth to the programs and have really exciting visions for where we can go to. That of course is informed by all of you guys as well, but I'm just really looking forward to it and excited. For the rest of the year, also still excited. We still need guidance and help with each of these projects. I wanted to give a big shout out to Votopedia too. I know Paul, I think Paul's on. I think he's still on. You know, he sleep early. But one of the really cool projects that Paul and Fernando have been working on, but Paul also had the great idea to be bringing in other partners who also are looking at reporting and creating dashboards for how do we compare what kind of voting access and security laws, what do those look like in different states? And we've gotten some really exciting potential partnerships with both media, potential universities, things like that from that project too. So it's been exciting to see that we can keep making progress on a lot of these different elements, and that they're leading to more connections as well as just impacting more places, which is very exciting. So I'm gonna pass it over to Sarah next, I believe. But the other thing I wanted to share, just so all of you guys know, which I don't think everybody knows, but maybe some of you, I am actually expecting a child in July, so next month. So I will be on maternity leave for most likely the very end of July and August, and then probably most of September. But I feel like the team is in good hands, all of that kind of stuff. I'll still be around for sure, but just wanted to let everybody know that in case you didn't know that. Because we've got really solid plans for the summer, and I feel really confident in the leadership that we have. But yeah, I'll be trying to adjust to my new life in that way. Sarah, I'll throw it over to you to talk about New Hampshire.
Awesome. Thank you. So I know you guys have been hearing about New Hampshire for a few years now. And one of the things that, we're really excited about is our opportunity to really expand there. So we're just kind of volunteer driven, and been doing the last couple of years what we could, obviously virtually with the pandemic. What we've had the opportunity to do now is, with securing of funding, be able to envision that full picture of what we wanted to do in New Hampshire, which, as a reminder, we've been looking at New Hampshire as a pilot program, right? That we feel like we know a good amount, given Katie's experience in Michigan, about what it looks like to make change with states that have the reform process, the ballot initiative process. And New Hampshire does not, which is a bummer for those states that do not have ballot initiative processes. But it doesn't mean that nothing can be done. And so it's going to help us learn quite a bit that we can then take into other states where you got to work the legislature to get stuff done. So there's a lot happening, exciting on the ground in New Hampshire that also has a more national impact when it comes to the other work that we're doing. And we're excited to be able to see that through. We are working towards a statewide assembly there, modeled a lot by what we did in DC. As you know, we feel like that was a great, momentum to the work that we've done. And so it'll kind of be a little bit the other way around, where we're going to have some, smaller kind of town hall stuff, a lot of strategy that's going to go into this statewide assembly. And that will also hopefully simultaneously be growing our overall volunteer base. We are also expanding that team to make all of this magic happen. So that means we would love to talk to anyone you might know in New Hampshire. You got a former college roommate, your niece, your cousins, dog sitters, great uncle, any wonderful people in New Hampshire. It's really important to us that we have, people who are residents of the state and in the state and know the state, helping us to make change in that state. So, you know how to find me, sarah@thepeople.org. Would love to get all your New Hampshire recommendations, but that's not all that needs to be done. Besides those people and those organizations, we've got some research help we need some assistance with. There's just a lot going on with that project because it is so sizable. So again, if you have interest in what we're doing there in any capacity, I would love to talk to you. And with that, I'm going to pass it on over to you, Ryan. Talk OVA.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So for those of you who didn't follow Operation Vote America as we were going through it, just as a quick overview, our kind of inception came from Mike and the Voting Rights Committee out of Peace at the Polls, and developed into this theory of change that was educate, involve, and act. And we were trying to target what we saw as major issues to the 22 elections, such as mis and disinformation and security. And so in order to try and address those, we really focused on creating a series of 18 videos, which we will show you an example here in just a sec, that covered everything from how do I get registered and where do I go to vote and what do I bring, all the way to what is an audit and where are my votes counted, how are my votes counted, and everything in between, as well as a lot of different resources on how to, kind of connect A to Z on, how do I actually get involved and get my vote securely cast. And one of those, of course, was Votopedia. Shout out again to Paul and Fernando. And we focused specifically in Michigan and Arizona, in part because of you all and our presence in those states, as well as their position as battleground states. And we got a lot of really positive results out of this pilot. We got over 600,000 views. We had almost 200,000 engagements on our videos. And then the actual resources themselves, we had over 20,000 visits to our webpage and utilization of our resources, which is a huge success. And I'll get into a little bit more of the details a little bit later, just talking about some of the lessons we learned. But going forwards, a lot of our plans involve replicating what we've already done. So kind of doubling down in Michigan and Arizona, using what we learned to improve the program. And then also going beyond just those states. And part of the way that we want to do that is going alongside our New Hampshire program and doing a sort of citizen-led video series and resource series, and using those improvements to just, in those learnings, to really make it as good as possible. And if this is something that you want to help be a part of, that you want to be involved with, go ahead and shoot me an email. We'd love to expand this as far as we can. And we need as much help as we can get to make it as good as possible. So Sarah, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll show a really brief video as an example for some of the content we've been pushing out.
Oh,
I'm
Sarah,
not
we
getting
don't
the
have
sound.
audio.
It's
Try
okay.
that again.
All sorts of ID. Here's a couple things you need to know. First off, you've got to bring your ID, like a driver's license. If you don't have one, it's okay. All sorts of IDs work. You can find the complete list here. Now, polls open at 6 a.m. That's early, and close at 7 p.m. If you're in line by 7 p.m., you are good. If you're in line by 7 p.m., they have to let you vote. Let's go vote.
So we did those influencer style videos, we did a podcast style, we did some animation styles. And like I said, I'll talk about some of our specific learnings a little bit later. But yeah, that's a look into how OVA went. Now pass it off into onto Jasmine to talk about deliberations.
Thank you. I'm going to come off video for just one quick second. I don't think I'm doing it right though. There we go. There I am. I apologize in advance. I'm in my car at a softball park, but definitely excited to be here and share some updates with you guys. And so with that, for everyone that I have not had the opportunity to meet, my name is Jasmine Hall, and I am privileged to support the Deliberations.us program. And just a really quick overview, our programming has been solely focused on youth and young adults in academic settings. And so that's been the bulk of our work, a lot of engagement and outreach over the past year and a half that I've been here. And so I just want to share a few brief highlights from our program. So for one, this year, we were able to exceed one of our highest priority strategic goals for 2023. 6 months in, we did it by adding 4 new deliberation modules. This is an excellent display of growth for us because in 2022, we only had 1 module to offer, and that was the one on electoral college reform. So snaps to that. The new modules include reducing gun violence here in America, money in politics, fair representation, and greater participation, which we'll discuss a little bit later. And I definitely want to just take a minute to shout out Ms. Carolyn and Ms. Sandra, who gave us so many hours of scripts, edits, and things of that nature. So thank you so much for that. Also, in response to one of our strategic goals for the year, we have expanded learning modules now to just include more resources and guides that we can make available to educators to just lessen that lift and make it a lot easier to incorporate.
I have the key. I still have the key. What a good idea. Well, that helps. Yeah.
Okay, just to lessen the list on our educators and make it super easy to incorporate deliberations.us into their current academic plans in the classrooms. We also made quite a few platform changes that improve data analysis and shortens that turnaround time for getting data reports out to professors and researchers to make it just a little bit easier on them as well. And additional platform modifications, because we've made an adjustment, which we'll discuss a little bit later, includes transcription, allowing us to make sure that information is transcribed and available for those who may have issues in keeping up with the audio or just deeply engaging and trying to take notes and things of that nature. We do have that available, as well as in event note taking. I had to say that slow. You're able to actually take notes and have them saved into the event to make it a lot easier to stay engaged as well as talk timers, because some of us, I'm guilty, will get a little chatty inside of the events, and we want to make sure that everyone has a space and time to express themselves. As a final update, I'd love to share around new partnerships. This is something that we've really been intentional with this year. We are in the final stretch of negotiations to be included in a digital textbook. And this is super exciting because it actually takes the lift off of us having to do so much engagement to secure all of our participants, and it makes our programming available to thousands of students per semester that will engage through their in-classroom programming through their undergraduate level work in government. So we're really excited about that. And then we're also expanding partnerships, we'll discuss later, to just include co-creating content, to be able to have more voices, more opinions in the space, and expand deliberations even beyond our own personal reach. So we're excited about that. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions or comments and just partnering with you to make this program even better. Am I pitching
Thanks,
to?
Jasmine.
No problem.
All right. Mike, I'm gonna throw it on over to you. As you all know, our Voting Rights Committee is always busy doing something pretty awesome. And Mike is gonna give us a little update on that as our fearless leader for that committee.
Thank you. And Sarah's a tremendous part of that every step of the way, which we appreciate. As a committee, we have a tremendous committee. We take very seriously. Our role is really having to do with one of the pillars of our organization and our democracy, and that is trying to help make sure that every American has a free and fair way to exercise their right to vote, to have their voice heard, and all the issues that matter to them and their communities. And going back, one of the really signal events we had was in 2020 during that presidential cycle, and working at that time with Kathy Stewart, who was with us on the Safe Challenge. Very proud of how everybody responded across the country. We were able to both educate as to what's possible in terms of vote at home and the very positive experiences that many states have had. There are 5 states that do nothing but vote by mail, and to help make sure that people had a safe and also in many ways a more effective experience. So that was good. We're able to reach out with people, with members that we have all over the country, and letters to the editor and other ways to communicate and be a part of that. As we went along, but one part that was incredibly disturbing is, and I live in Arizona, there were people with AR-15s at the polling places and drop boxes, and at the county elections headquarters, people had to have police escorts to get to their vehicle. And these are of whatever party, these are hardworking people that made sure, successfully so, that those votes were accurately counted and tabulated. And so that's an ongoing struggle, and it's so thrilling that Ryan's working on that. I'm glad to report, though, a very specific thing. We had a wonderful intern who was a graphic arts major, and he made this tremendous banner, which became the backdrop for a demonstration we had at the state capitol with leaders and clergy of every faith you can imagine, speaking not on terms of an outcome of an issue, but on the fact that the process should be one that's peaceful and inviting for all people. We're able to use that same banner, I'm proud to say, at the following King Day, and Martin Luther King III and his wife and daughter were there present. And so we've tried to raise our voice that whatever your opinion, it should be a sacred article of faith that elections and the counting of the votes should be done in a peaceful way. Real quickly, we found a really good niche, and Dave Lenny of our committee is amazing. We've had some educational forums. We had a wonderful one on ranked choice voting with top people all over the country, from Maine to New York City, et cetera. And that's just a very interesting development. We're able to help explain just how that works and make that accessible to a lot of people. Youth voting, very close to I'm one of the first that got to be part of the 18-year-old vote a while back. But it's very important, and we've seen a very encouraging growth in the participation of young people in voting in our elections. And this year, going back to really to our roots with before our roots with Katie in Michigan, we're doing a series of exchange forums and ballot initiatives. And the first one we had was really, I thought it was really great. We kept it limited to a few states in Oregon and South Dakota in particular. And I'll tell you, there's a new friend of mine, Dre Samuelson, who's for many years with the senators from Daschle to Johnson in South Dakota. And they're working on a open primaries measure there. And he was so excited to be there with Katie. And Katie particularly, I mean, it shows how people can have an individual influence. Katie was able to chime in on some difficulties they were having with their state Supreme Court in terms of restricting their ability to have the voice of the people heard. And so that was personally important to him. And I learned, and others did too, from Katie on how it pays off to be very careful in how you design these initiatives so that they're not subverted in the future, and so that you can keep faithful to the original intent. So that's something I and others learned very much from that. And you see the results in Michigan, and hopefully we can help spread that word and make sure that others benefit as well. So we will continue to try to educate as to some of the important issues. Right now, there are some states opening voting and some making it more difficult. So we try to keep up. We really do welcome and need participation of others. Our upcoming meeting will be next Tuesday. We'd love to have you come by and see us and help us deal with these really important issues that confront us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So now, before we jump into some of the conversations we want to have around projects going forward, like I said, wanted to give an opportunity if there were any questions related to any of the updates. Like I said, if you want to go ahead and drop those in the chat, and Ryan has an eye in there, and we'll pass those on over and we'll get all those answered for you, or as many as we can.
Yeah, I didn't see any coming through. So if I missed your question, if you could go ahead and repost it, that would be great. Or if you have any new questions, just let us know. We'd love to answer any questions that you may have. We'd love to fill you in on any details that you're curious about. Anything and everything. Let us know what is interesting you.
Like we need that Jeopardy music. Yeah. Ask and you shall receive.
Thanks, Alan.
I got a question in here about states that we're considering targeting. So I can just talk on that real quickly. We don't have anything set in stone right now. We're doing a really big look across the country, across a variety of criteria. We've been talking about this for a while, and obviously we'll let you all know before we make any final decisions. There's battleground states, population size, diversity, all kinds of stuff that we're looking at.
I think too, like volunteer momentum's a big part of it. And I just wanted to add a lot of the work Andrew's been really focused on this last year, what happened in Kentucky as well. So I bet that we'll be doing a little bit more work there.
Looks like Elena asked a question. You mentioned that you were looking for another state to come after New Hampshire's project. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think we definitely are. I think if resources become available, either volunteer, well, it would be volunteer and financial, then we could get that started sooner rather than later, but definitely open to that and hoping to make this a replicatable process. We help kind of consult to campaigns right now, folks who are trying to figure out how to navigate the ballot initiative process or hold an assembly or pass something at the city level. So in some ways we're like helping, but we aren't really directly leading those efforts. It's more just like providing support and examples from the model that we have, but we'd love to, I think, be able to actually have more that we, the collective, all of us, we have initiated also.
We have another question of why New Hampshire?
Great question. So actually, so when we got started in 2019 and held the original assembly, from there were about a bunch of people raised their hands to kind of say, this was awesome, I want to bring this to my state. And the one that has kind of stuck with it ever since 2019 is New Hampshire. We had Terry, who is from there, who was a Republican representative. She had a friend that was a Democrat, trying to run as a Democrat representative, and they were just really excited about the idea. And and Lisa Nash, who's on the House of Delegates, I'm not sure if she's on tonight. And so they really kept the momentum going. And then we were doing kind of the in-person version. 2020 happened. Everybody was like, what's going on? We need to pause. And we even kept meeting, is pivoted to online. But the one thing we couldn't do over these last 4, I guess, maybe 5 years, was get secured funding to be able to actually support beyond just a volunteer capacity. And that's what changed this year. And I think the reason why is because we've been active there for several years. When New Pluralists is one of the funders, and they really wanted a community-based program that helps focus on bringing folks together and understanding the plurality of America, and seeing that there had been such a commitment, they were really excited by. I will just say a couple other interesting facts about New Hampshire really quickly. One is they have the largest state legislature in the country. They have 400 people in their state level legislature, which is, yeah, Lynn, I see your eyebrows. I'm like, what? I didn't know that either. And so they should be theoretically one of the most representative states. They should kind of be in line with what the people want, because they have the fewest amount of people per representative that they're representing. And yet you don't see that. You still see people who are frustrated by the system. You see a legislature that is not in line with the actual demographics of the state. And we see that people are really excited to want to make change. The other thing that's helpful is that the state isn't huge. There's about 2 million people, I think, that live there. So for kind of our size of an organization, it makes it a little bit easier, more manageable to think about, could we really make an impact and really try and see, is there a way to put pressure onto a legislature compared to maybe a really big state that doesn't have a ballot initiative process. And we would love your help with research. I just saw that in the notes.
Yep, I sent a message, would love that help. And then we also have a comment here, as far as the liberty-minded people in my circles, the ones in New Hampshire seem to be the most extreme.
Yes, so New Hampshire is super fascinating. And if you guys would want to do like a meeting just on that, I would love to, and have some of our New Hampshire folks on. I think Stephen's on. So Stephen, not to like talk on behalf of Granite Staters, but there's a big libertarian kind of swell and arm of activism that's there. It's the live free or die state. That's their state motto. When we were able to do a little bit of online targeted ad testing, ad responded really well. But I think because it's in New England, it has a lot of really cool cultural elements of town hall meetings and people having to come together in person to pass budgets, and a lot of accountability related to voting and things. So it's been interesting. And traditionally being one of the first in the primary for the presidential primary states, you know, a lot of these folks have had presidential candidates directly in their living rooms. And so I think that just changes your perspective and what it means to vote and to participate in the process. So it's been exciting to kind of see and follow. And like I said, happy to kind of have more updates on that too.
Elena just asked if she could get a brief or summary paper. I'm going to go ahead and I already dropped it in the chat, but I'll drop it again. This is our New Hampshire program overview document. It kind of goes into detail about some more of the specifics, and we're happy to spread that information around.
Yeah, and we can do a deeper dive too, Elena, if you want more details on that. This is really used as like a one pager for when we're doing intros with partners and stuff. That Stephen was grateful, and our volunteer Bill too, for helping us kind of formulate this and giving us feedback. And Lisa. Awesome. If there are more questions throughout the meeting, feel free to throw them in here, but we want to be done talking and start actually talking with you guys. I know that's why you guys are here, is we need your brain power so we can kick it off to the next part of the agenda. Thanks, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you might be staying up, actually.
I think it's me again. Yeah.
I will remove myself.
There we go.
Great. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time before we head into our first breakout session going over our 2024 election strategy. And part of the goal with this is to really get your input on what outcome you would like us to be focusing on. But I wanted to give a little bit of background before we dive straight into that. We will just go ahead and dive right in. What we're looking at in terms of the anticipated points of concerns is a variety of issues, specifically around artificial intelligence, the creation of false images, videos, voice is becoming more and more common. Election security. From some of the research that our partners have done, we found that the most requested piece of equipment from election workers is ballistic glass. And so that's something that we're very aware of and a concern that we have. We're also seeing a large number of election workers who traditionally return year over year, not coming back to work the polls. You have places like California, 40% of their election workers have refused to come back. And then you have all the way up to places like Arizona has over 50%. Nevada almost has 60% of their election workers not returning or planning to return in the upcoming election cycle. Sarah, if you want to go to the next slide. We're also aware of mis and disinformation. So that's either incorrect information that is honestly shared and creating confusion, or intentionally wrong information that's being shared to cause confusion. That was obviously a big concern in the last election cycle. And so we're concerned that it may be one coming up. Of course, there's ballot security, the actual ability for your vote to be counted and counted correctly. And then there's a lot of states exiting the ERIC system, which ensures that we have accurate voter rolls. So these are some of the points of concern that we're looking at, and some issues that we may want to try and counteract. So Sarah, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll start talking about some of the OVA learnings and then kind of set up the stage for the beginning of our conversation.
And Brian, I was just going to hop in real quick, like I always do.
Yeah, please do.
Just some of these elements, obviously from AI, it is hard to anticipate exactly how it will be used. There's some scenarios that people are thinking about that are worst case scenarios or medium, but it really amplifies how quickly misinformation can get out there, or fakes, or even like the ability to chat with people and you think you're talking to a real person, but it's actually just a computer program that's trying to get you angry or confuse you about how to vote, all those things. And the other thing with the, we saw coming out of COVID, because of the population that was most vulnerable to COVID, we saw kind of a decrease in election workers, but then you saw this violence. And that's really where states normally get 8 to 10% of their poll workers that don't return, seeing 50 or 60%. It makes us vulnerable in a couple ways. And one of those ways includes that there's a learning curve, and a presidential election tends to be one of the biggest elections that a state has, usually the biggest. And if you have somebody who doesn't know how to use the printer, as an example, and so the printer gets jammed and it takes them 20 minutes to fix instead of somebody who is more experienced who could fix it in 5 minutes, that's when you start getting people starting to think, oh, is something nefarious happening? Is there some kind of election interference that's happening, which we have seen over the last couple election cycles can spiral or cause distrust more necessary than it needs to. And of course, we want to always still be making sure that elections are being ran accurately. And when it's your first election, you might not be as accurate, or you might need a reminder of those rules. And so that's why, just as we're looking at this next election, it's something to definitely take into consideration. Anyways, you did a great job, Brian, but just wanted to add those.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. So some of the OVA learnings, there was a huge appetite for the type of content that we were putting out there. We found out that industry standard for matriculation from, say, views to web page visits is about 1 to 2%. That's considered good. We had almost a 3% matriculation, which was exemplary. And we saw that across pretty much all of our content. What stuck and didn't stick, we saw that the animated video styles did not do as good as the, kind of faux podcast or selfie style videos. And we also saw an interesting trend that the influencer style videos, that kind of selfie style, did well with an older demographic, and the podcast style did better with a younger demographic, which was something that we didn't expect, but has informed some of our plans going forward, and was just kind of an interesting little fact that we got. The things that were the most sought after were a lot of the poor information around voting. How do I register? Where do I go to vote? What can I bring? What can I not bring? Those saw a much higher rate of viewership and matriculation to our sites than the other topics did, which was very interesting. And then I talked a little bit about why we went with Michigan and Arizona. Part of it was because they're battleground states, they're swing states. And so for better or worse, they see a lot more focus and a lot more activity than other states. And because of that, it also attracts a lot more mis and disinformation, which was primarily what we were focusing on in the 22 iteration of Operation Vote America. And so before I move on, Katie, was there anything you wanted to add about OVA?
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
I think just one of the facts that I don't think you said, 3% of the voting population, if you were about to say that, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So the amount of people we reached was about 3% of the total voting population of Arizona and Michigan. I did not mention that. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, and I just, it really showed that a little bit of money can go a long way when you are working on digital. The other thing is we had a really great partnership with scrutineers that Paul helped us get connected with, that helped us actually have on the ground programming, and I think offered a lot of insight to us about the extreme differences from state to state and why it makes it so confusing. And in a lot of ways that gets credited for right reasons, and why our system is hard to hack as a country, because nothing is done the same no matter what state you are in when it comes to elections. But at the same time, it also showed why it's really hard to kind of apply one message to all 50 states. And you really need to be working closely with the folks who are running elections in that state to make sure that you can understand what are their top needs, what are their communities that they feel are more vulnerable or not, and how do they help get folks plugged in as well. I think there is a lot of potential for more growth for partnering directly with county clerks. We had a couple that were like super great and very excited. And the other really cool thing is they depend on volunteers who are both Democrat and Republican, and sometimes independent, but depending on the state, unfortunately, independents can't volunteer at all. 50 states. In Michigan, I can't, and it's very frustrating. But what's cool about that is they see every day the thing that the people does, which is we can overcome differences and believe in our country and fight for it together. And so having those connections, I think, is a really great thing to see that we were able to do really quickly with this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Katie. Sarah, if you want to throw the slides back up there, I'll just really briefly talk about, kind of the beginning of the conversation, and then we will jump right in. So it's very important to us as we go into 24 that we are, we're slide 13, Sarah, that we are getting your input. We want to make sure that this has your seal of approval, that this has your advice and consent. And so we want to make sure that your voice is heard. And part of that is understanding at this part of the operation, what is feasible, what's attainable. And so if you want to go to the next slide, Sarah, we're going to look at primarily two modes of thinking when it comes to our 24 election strategy. And that's national and general versus local and specific. We would love to be able to do a 50-state plan with local implementation as well as a national ad campaign that covers the whole US. Unfortunately, that's just not possible at this point in time. So really the way that we're thinking about it is we can either go, kind of broad and shallow or narrow and deep. And that's that national and general versus local and specific. And we've done 2 iterations of this, one for each type. We've done the SAFE Challenge, which was very much this kind of national campaign to try and build awareness. And then we just did Operation Vote America, which was very specific to Michigan and Arizona, but we were able to get really deep into the weeds on election policy and specifics. And so I would love to put up that poll, Sarah, if we can, to see what you're interested in. Would you rather us go national and general or local and specific? And I think that that'll help inform the conversation that we're about to have. So Sarah, if you can throw that up there, that would be excellent. And we'll just we will wait just a quick little second for people to start answering and see what we get back. So go ahead and throw your vote on up there. And it looks like we've got a pretty sizable majority going for locally and specifically. So kind of replicating, not necessarily a replication of our Operation Vote America, but that same kind of mentality of, we're going to get really fine-tuned on a small area and see what kind of change we can make. So that's fantastic. And again, before we go into the discussion, Katie, was there anything that you wanted to add before we actually start looking at outcome-based approaches?
Now I think we're good to talk.
Great, awesome. Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll break out into small groups and breakout rooms. If everybody can go ahead and share your name, what you're concerned about for the election, and then if we can go ahead and jump into what outcomes we want to prioritize for 2024. So not necessarily how we want to get there just yet, but what is it that we want to try and impact? Is it voter turnout? Is it education? Is it trust in the elections? That's really what we want to get some more information on. So Sarah, if you want to start divvying us up into groups, that would be really, really helpful.
And if you have any questions,
are we supposed to be voting or something, or putting stuff in the chat? I'm confused.
Yeah, so we're gonna go into breakout rooms, and while we're there, we're gonna pick somebody who's gonna kind of be the group speaker and share the conversation that we've had with the rest of the group. But we're gonna spend I think about 15-20 minutes just discussing this amongst smaller groups so that we can see what kind of outcomes we actually want to prioritize.
Thank you.
I think the question was, we saw a quick flash of a screen that had a question on it, and then it disappeared.
share the results again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And we can capture those and share them after as well.
All right, so send everybody over into breakout sessions. You're going to get a 1-minute warning, and then we'll get back here to recap on the conversations. So have a good talk. Any volunteers would like to share, get us kicked off and what the discussion was like in your group? Sandy?
Okay, let's get us kicked off. So one of the things that was wonderful is all of us could agree that all of the different things that we could care about are things we should care about. Like all of them matter, which makes it hard to say like what's the priority. So there were definitely, there's one very passionate voice, but then got echoed by a couple of other people who was like, we do have to be very careful about this safety of the polls thing and people believing that our elections can be trusted. and that they work so that we don't turn voters away or we don't open up for election denial to become, you know, the thing that happens every single election and gets worse and worse. So there's sort of a feeling like the house is a little on fire on that front, and we need to keep pressing real information about how elections work, that they are secure, et cetera, get the poll workers, you know, back there after the exodus. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are folks who are like, obviously, I don't want to see bad things happen at the polls. Obviously, I would love to see voter turnout be higher and higher in this country because we still have fairly apathetic turnout. And if we want to see real representation of citizens, we got to see more people at the polls. So voter turnout always sounds like a good thing to work on. And there's one person that was particularly passionate about that. But then there were others that were like, yeah, I want that and I want that. But like the candidates I'm going to get to vote on suck. So that's a problem. So even if I can feel great about the election, the going to the polls part, and even if a lot of people go to the polls, look at who they have to vote for. So then that gets to more systemic like changes and wanting to push on those things like reforms that would help like open primaries or ranked choice voting. And so there's sort of this feeling of we got to be really careful to not just stand by while the house burns down in 2024 if things get really bad. But on the other hand, we have a longer term job to do, like to really more fundamentally fix our whole electoral process so we get much better, more exciting candidates coming out of that process as well. We kind of ran the gamut in our group in terms of the individual passion, but we could all keep agreeing with each other like, yeah, that's really important too. We got to do that.
And truth be told, there's just a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're all top priorities. It's a matter of, you know, funding and ways that we can manage to get as much as we can get done. All right. Any of the other groups? Carolyn?
Yeah, our group, I think the strongest theme in the group was the issue of trust in the elections. And a couple of us linked trust in election to ensuring voter turnout in 2024, knowing that reduced trust in elections often actually leads to people not voting. Mm-hmm. Another related theme was the importance of audits as a part of the way to deal with the issue of trust in election. And we had Donna, who lives in Maryland, and Maryland is one of those states where independent voters cannot vote in primaries. So I think Donna stayed with that as the most important issue in terms of her ability to have her vote make a difference in the elections.
Which, you know, raises an important point too, Carolyn, that, you know, we are lucky to have people representing every state in the union. We're all over the country, and sometimes it comes down to priorities look different depending on where we're at. Do we have one more, I believe, group to share? Bueller.
Elaine, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Sorry. I first want to say, and this is from me, that I've been involved now with a number of other groups that are either very issue driven, that were issues that I'm really interested in and concerned about. And I've sort of, you know, gotten enough involved. And I just really want to thank Katie and Ryan and Sarah. And where's I don't see her. Jasmine.
I'm
right.
here.
No, I really, and this was something that Kathy and our group really gave a soliloquy about too, I think was, it's really important about how the people operate and how you do what you do, and that you do it in a nonpartisan way, and that it's done how am I gonna say it? Bottom up. Okay. I mean, you're working to get, you know, individual people educated, individual people helping them move forward. It's not a it's not a top-down organization that you say, this is what we're going to do. And okay, you know what I mean? You want to make sure that there's people in states that are interested in, what are they interested in? And we're going to help them out. That's a very different organization than one that is, making all the decisions up here and kind of need people, but you don't really, you're there. I'm not sure why you're there, but to, I guess, help get all the votes. But there are organizations that are run like that. So I don't, Kathy, I'm using Kathy's name. She didn't quite say it like that. That's my verbiage. But I just wanted to put it in my verbiage to thank you all for, and it's a much harder job to do what you're doing than the other way. So, we're going to keep on, I'm going to be there with you to keep on plugging. All right.
Well, we couldn't do it without you guys showing up for 2 hours on a Tuesday night. So thanks to you.
I just want to say that we talked about, accountability in candidates and holding them to, instead of their lies and everything coming out, holding them to being truthful and about who they are and, at least who they are. We talked about, the swing states. And unfortunately, the swing states are getting smaller and smaller and smaller amounts of them. 39 states right now are basically held by one party or the other. The legislature and the governor are all of one party. And, that upsets me, but the swing states are where I think the major issues on voting and making sure that it's secure and making sure people know what to do and how to do it is really critical, because this is where you have the activity and it makes a difference, so it does seem, that's where, the elections and being trusted and everything is where those votes are going to be closer. It's really important. And it seems like we were kind of moving towards that. It's where we think that people should go in this election, is to help that out, I hope I did it okay, guys. And anything anybody else wants to say that I forgot?
Oh, that was great. Awesome. Well, we are going to switch gears a little bit then, as we kind of wrap up that conversation. Unless there's any bows you want to put on that, Ryan. Then we are going to start talking deliberation a little bit more. So we're going to bring Jasmine on back.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Just to kick us off, I would love to, it's just my main slide, Sarah.
Okay.
Just give a quick reminder on what deliberations.us actually is. And so it's a custom video discussion platform that
I like that though, chat form.
I know, you know what? I'm going to copyright that.
Write that down.
Platform that's used for facilitating small group deliberations and problem solving at a mass scale. It's honestly limitless. And so we take super complex issues or issues that are perceived as super complex. We assemble a panel of experts that know the left, the right, the middle, and we put them in a space to really explore it from every angle. And from those discussions, we create little bite-sized, easy to digest pieces and turn that information into custom videos and resources that we're able to put on our platform in a structured way and have open dialogue with our participants about it. And so we've seen some really great feedback around these deliberations in terms of increased understanding, in terms of increase in understanding of their own personal views on certain issues. And so it really has been a journey to watch the program grow. And so over the past year, we've had quite a few key learnings. We've hit a few bumps and we've had some really, really great highs throughout the whole process. But essentially, we've been super intentional about understanding what it is people want and or need to actually deliberate. What do they need to mine solutions for? What do they need to identify common ground on so that we can actually move forward in these issues? And so each time that we host a deliberation, whether it's with a campus or an individual professor or just random adults who find themselves in these conversations, we like to mine for that feedback and really understand, did you enjoy the process? What about it don't you like? And people are very candid. When you open that door of feedback, it will flood you. So we were able to really process all of that and unpack it. And a few key themes kept rising. One was around content. And so for over a year, for all of 2022 and first quarter of 2023, the only topic that we had as a module was the Electoral College. And so as we were doing our outreach and trying to engage with other organizations in this space, we were very limited. Because even in the academic space, we were limited to government classes. We were limited to political science classes. And even in that, there is only a very small portion of the curriculum that actually deep dives into the Electoral College. And so a lot of the feedback there was, I want to do deliberation, but I'm not on that. We need some more content. Okay. Another part was just alignment with academic calendars. Even like I mentioned earlier, if we were able to get to that professor and he's like, yes, I definitely want to have my class participate, but we did the Electoral College last semester. I won't teach it again until next semester. Follow up with me then. Okay. The next part was around people really wanted to deep dive into current issues. What's going on right now that impacts my individual community? And so several topics came up: violence, gun violence, climate change, academic debt, all of these things. And so we're writing, we're collecting, we're pulling all of that information together so that as funding becomes available, we're definitely moving forward. Another thing that rose to the top was, how do we diversify the use of our platform? We were originally on Chasm that had nice functionality, but it was limited as well. The branding was limited. Our ability to add additional features was super limited. And so we had to really take into account what's needed. How do we pull the information that we're bringing in via the surveys and turn it around in a timely manner? Because we've had the opportunity to work with professors and researchers, and they're like, well, how long does it take to get a research report? And I'm like, call me in a few weeks. Not really a few weeks, but it did take quite a bit of time to actually manually go through the data via code and then put it back into a template that will format into a nice report. So taking all of that in, we were able to, looking at my notes, really come up with some things that we felt would expand our opportunities. One, to expand our audience, to expand our reach via outreach, as well as to diversify the ways in which our program could be implemented into other academic settings. And so one of the ways we came up with is incorporating AI into our platform functionality. How are we able to leverage the newest technology to make sure that as we're making changes, that we're staying in line with current trends and data and functionality as with other platforms? Another is utilizing the platform for live town hall sessions, being able to bring the people and the change makers into the same spaces, using it in academic settings with high-level school board members to actually hear the voices from students and parents around changes they need and want to see on their individual campuses. We've also leveraged partnering with professors to produce content for textbooks, which we're super excited about, as well as research partnerships, identifying new ways to expand how deliberations are used and how additional content can be made available synchronously and asynchronously. One of our newest is venturing into expanded deliberation modules, which will include K-12 lesson plans, instructional materials, resources, IP guides, and in-person facilitation guides, as well as offering our awesome facilitation training via Miss Sarah through synchronous modules on the platform. We're super excited about all of these new facets because they put us in a position to actually qualify for additional funding opportunities. We found since we've explored these additional options, there's a wealth of funding opportunities available that offer these programs directly to districts. And so now we're being able to put ourselves in the pipelines for those. As well as new audiences. We're looking now and working now to really determine what are our next audiences that we'd like to expand to. We've been thankful to be in the academic space and we've seen growth there for sure. But how do we expand into additional audiences? And what are those additional audiences? Well, I know we've previously discussed military families and bases. We've talked about religious facing organizations and groups. And so I love to get your feedback around what are some spaces that we've yet to explore that could be beneficial for the program. And so that's the end of my updates. And I know the next piece is our discussion prompts. What I found for sure is that deliberations and this deliberation space is most fruitful when you're able to leverage partnerships. I know that for one, when I first got started here, we were literally going person by person, campus by campus, email by email, doing individual outreach. However, when we're able to partner and leverage those partnerships to use their reach as well, we double, triple, quadruple our efforts simultaneously. And so the discussion prompt that we're going to go into is really around how should we expand? Who are those groups that we should consider expanding to? And what would be the most effective way to engage those audiences? We know now everyone's probably burned out from living on Zoom and Teams and Google Meets and all of these other places. And so being a solely remote organization, what is our best method to reach out and engage these organizations to therefore engage their cohorts and lists to participate in future deliberation? Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Jasmine, before we jump into the breakout sessions, would you like me to launch that poll?
Yes, please. I forgot about my poll question. I'm not doing
I wasn't going to let it go forgotten. I got you.
See, I know. See, me and you, Sarah, me and you.
So you guys may have seen this question if you were one of the people that proactively finished that survey for us. Just kind of get an idea of who's had a chance to participate in one of the deliberations, conversations. We've had a bunch over the last year or so. So just want to get an idea of who has actually been in and done one. So take a minute and let us know that.
Should see a poll on your screen.
I can see the poll, but it won't let me vote.
It did now.
I'm not sure if you're a co-host, Jasmine, but if you are, we can't vote. If you're a
co-host. Well, now I feel excluded.
Well, the spoiler is we know you've participated.
Right? Too many. Well, way too many.
Just a couple more seconds. All right. Here's what we're looking at. So a good chunk that have been able to participate, which is awesome.
Especially if you haven't and you're not quite sure what it is in the breakout group, feel free to ask more questions about that as we're in the discussion, because it might make it a little hard to imagine.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we're going back in. I did do my best to shake up the groups a little bit. So hopefully you're talking to some people you maybe haven't had a chance to talk with yet tonight about the same chunk of time. And then we'll come back and do the same little recap. So have good.
What's the topic that we're supposed to actually talk about?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. It'll be around the deliberations, and what Jasmine was just talking about as far as new audiences and the way to increase the visibility there.
Okay.
Let me know if you have any trouble getting into your room there too. And who would like to volunteer first to give us their group's recap on that deliberations conversation?
I can. I totally forgot to ask for a volunteer again, so I won't make Carolyn do it again. But we had some great suggestions. The YMCA and Habitat for Humanity have both made pledges to want to, I'm probably not articulating this the right way, but basically start having more community conversations, especially around like reducing that heat and finding commonality. And they both have chapters in every single state. So if you have programming that can be replicated in every state in local communities, that's super helpful. American Promise might be a great partner. There's a group called Engage Miami that's like youth focused that could also maybe be looking at like helping co-create some content, and then looking at those political science majors and where they have different ideas for where they might be having to do projects on their own. Could they be helping create more content? And then in-person events, people were definitely excited about and felt like that could be applied in a really interesting way. And then every state has a National Humanities Council that has a planning period where they figure out what are our activities going to be for the year. So even if we could maybe start in New Hampshire to kind of double dip there and see if we could get a deliberation as part of their focus for the next year, and then also tied into our New Hampshire plan. So it was a great conversation. I think we also then just at the end started getting into like, and how do we also make the next steps after you've done a deliberation exciting and shareable so that you could help take a piece of what you learned or the excitement you had and put it on social media and try and attract more folks as like kind of a way to highlight also what do Americans think and how do you help not only professors share that, but maybe the people who participated in that deliberation. Can they send it to their local officials? Can they share it amongst friends for being able to show their background on these things?
That's a great idea. It's Katie.
Fernando.
Thanks, Fernando. Next group, jump on in.
I can go next.
Kathy?
So yeah, we ended up spending a great deal of our conversation talking about the challenge of really bringing diverse voices into the deliberations, conservative, liberal, moderate, etc. And we also talked some about how do you do the targeting if you're going to go for a general audience in Google or Facebook, and how do you really target your advertising there. And I thought it was a very rich conversation about the reputation liberals have of using the word civil as a way to close things down, and how one of the muscles that has to get built is listening. And learning, I'm going to quote Stephen here, learning to rebuild the ability to work together. And we kind of talked about that maybe an issue like gun violence is going to be a very difficult way to bring together liberal, conservative, and moderate, but maybe some of the political reform issues, because so many Americans do agree that our democracy is broken, gives you an opportunity to go to some new places. And then in terms of specific organizations, guys, I'm probably going to miss some of the ones we mentioned, but there was discussion about the League of Women Voters and some of the programming they do, and some experiences folks have had in different states, Arizona, New Hampshire, Braver Angels, Veterans for Political Innovation, etc.
You guys had a great conversation. And a lot, a couple minutes. Thank you, Kathy. Do we have one more? Volunteer for one more group?
I can go. I promise I'll be really quick. We had a very, very similar conversation, which again kind of proves the point that I mentioned earlier, that the partnerships, the relationships are essential when it comes to the success of deliberations.us. I had a really great group, Lynn and blame my heart, not blame my mind, not my heart. Forgot her name. Hold on.
Donna.
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Donna.
Donna from League of Women Voters.
What a gem, right? She mentioned Brave Rangers as well as the League of Women Voters, and being able to partner in the spaces where so many of us are doing the exact same work to just kind of pull the manpower. So very rich conversations, definitely a lot of follow-ups for myself as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jasmine. And I know we are over time, but I'm going to ask, please, for just about a minute and a half more, just to give you a little bit about what is coming up with us. This is all information we'll also get in the follow-up coming at you. And Ryan is also going to be nice enough to drop some links in the chat as well. But as per usual, we never just want to talk about it. We have stuff for you to do, and good stuff too. So you just heard from the amazing Kathy Stewart with independent voting. They got stuff going on over there. We partner with them with a book club called Politics for the People, P4P, and that is coming out next month with reading the book Poverty by America with author Matthew Desmond. Guys, if you have not had a chance to participate in a P4P, it is so awesomely structured. And then Kathy starts like, author first, who do we have the ability to actually bring into this conversation? So read the book, or even if you don't have the chance to do it, you join on July 25th and you are talking with the author. You are asking questions of the author. How cool is that? And what a unique opportunity. So please take a look at that and see if it's with your schedule. Next thing is the House of Delegates, our governing body, of which a lot of you sit and serve on. We do 2-year terms that go September to 2 Septembers later. And we have a class, or a cohort rather, that is going to get started this September. And we are looking for nominations. So if you know someone who you think, and they would really bring an awesome voice and perspective to this body, if you yourself would bring an awesome voice and perspective and you don't already serve, we would love to have your hat in the ring. And we'll get just a really quick nomination Google form that we'd like to have those all in by the end of the month. So we'd like to get all your nominations for that. We also have some things you can do as far as committees go. You got a chance to hear from Mike and several other people here tonight that are also on the Voting Rights Committee. Our next meeting is this coming Tuesday, the 20th at 8 Eastern. We'll get you the link to that too. We would love to have some new faces, come hear about what we're doing and get plugged in, doing some great work towards voting rights. And then last thing is on those deliberations we just talked about, a couple pieces. One, if you've got some additional thoughts, some additional organizations, you wake up in the middle of the night with the inspiration of how we can get deliberations out to the masses, please contact Ms. Jasmine at jasmine@deliberations.us. We can get you more details if you have questions, whatever you need. And then also, if you're interested in talking or in joining one of the deliberations, please save the date for June 22nd. You might think, that seems like it's coming up soon. It sure is. But right on the heels of this meeting, we wanted to have a chance to have that next deliberation conversation. So I know, lots and lots of stuff. Speaking of that deliberation, you see a poll just popping up on your screen here. We'd love to get an idea of what it is you would like to talk about. We've got 5 different deliberations, as you know, so feel free to go ahead and give us your thoughts there on what deliberations you might want to see happen on the 22nd.
It's a ranking it's a new type of poll that Zoom just let out. So we're working with the latest technology. Rank which one you're most interested in doing if you haven't done it already. That would be super helpful for us. Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, kind of a 1 to 5. We're hoping that there's several of these that you're interested in talking about. One of them is going to be happening on the 22nd based on what interest is, but yeah, we got 5 to work with there.
Yeah, so we'll be choosing the topic for the 22nd based on this poll. So let us know.
See, voting matters, guys.
And we have one more slide, I think.
Yes. Just a minute for, feel free to keep going, letting us know if you need to mull it over a little bit while you're thinking about what deliberation you'd like to see happen on the 22nd. Couple last things. As you know, as a nonprofit, we are always in fundraising mode. So a couple things, if you're interested in helping us with that. One, if you would like to and are in position to make a donation, we got some pretty cool t-shirts. I got them boxed up in my house here and I will get them in the mail to you as soon as I can. If that is something that you would like to make a donation, give $25, we'll get you a t-shirt on its way to you. There's also, you may see birthday fundraisers you can do on Facebook. If you have a birthday coming up, happy birthday. And we would love to be the gift recipient for your Facebook birthday fundraiser.
It's tax deductible too. I just did one because my birthday was June 4th and I just chose a random number like 365 so I could raise like $1 per day of the year. And I actually ended up raising $400. So it was just putting people out there, just saying like why I wanted to support the organization. So if you need help doing that, we have a guide, but one of us could help you too. No other lift on you. And sometimes Facebook helps match a couple of the dollars too. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Awesome. 2 other things that ways you can get involved. If you want to let Ryan know where you might be interested. Both with Votopedia, we got some research and data updates that we would love some help with, and the governance committee, which helps with our House of Delegates recruitment, some other organizational governance. If either of those are of interest to you, we've got some projects ready to go that we would love some volunteer help with.
It looks like the election access one got the most, if I read the polling results correctly. So Jasmine, just so you know, so we will be doing our election deliberation. If you haven't participated in that, it talks about fun things like universal voting and making election day a holiday. So we would love to see you on the 22nd. And I think if I'm plugging this correctly, Sandy, Ryan, Sarah, for the governance committee, the next meeting in particular, which will be in our newsletter and I think is probably on the people.org on our calendar, but is really going to be talking about the House of Delegates recruitment. And we really would like to hear from folks who have already been involved in the organization and kind of about that search and how it's going and our plans for the future for that. So if you can attend, even if you don't make it a regular commitment, we would love to see you there. Yeah. That's it. All of the talking, all of the things. It is so great seeing you guys. I'm happy to stay on if there's more questions or if people want to chat, but we know we want to get you off on time. Just thank you as I, not to be too sappy, but as I think about bringing a new little baby girl, I didn't mention this earlier, into the world in in a month probably. Thinking about all of the amazing connections and community that not only I personally have, but this organization has, getting emotional, is so special. It is so amazing to think about how there are people in all 50 states spending their Tuesday evening wanting to figure out how to make the world better and think about how to make a better country for this generation, but the next generation that is currently incubating. So it's really exciting to think about, and thank you guys for your time. These were the starts of conversations. We are definitely going to keep working on strategy for both deliberations and elections. So if you had a lot of fun talking about that, please stick with us. Please let us know because we want more of your feedback and help. But just love seeing you guys and thank you for joining us.